Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about the single building block of all manifestation coming to fruition. The most important, broken down fundamental from which all manifestations come forth, from which all bridge of incidents move forward, and from which all people who are involved take action to fulfill your manifestation. So the reason I've come up with this video is because I've never specifically named it as such, right? And this building block is called impulses, right? The impulse. Our impulses are the building block of manifestation. And the reason this is important is because being that this is the most base fundamental, which means that all aspects of human reality exist from the impulse, right? Which means that impulse is what drives us to take action. It's what drives other individuals to take action to help us get what we want. And I think that with this fundamental in mind, it will make it a lot more clear as to how manifestation works and what to expect, right? So let's just jump right into it, right? So, I didn't say first, definitely subscribe, hit the bell icon, and hit the like button if there's something with the algorithm from which people who would not be able to receive this information, which is not available anywhere else, be able to receive it. So jumping into it, impulses. What does this mean? Why am I talking about impulses? So when we imagine something, right? So first of all, let's just be very clear here. Manifestation is the act of imagining something and then having the external world produce it. So it is a mystical, magical style thing which unfolds actually every moment of our lives that we just were not, we did not understand this. We did not know this until we stumbled upon some teaching, or we were in enough pain to look somewhere, or perhaps we started catching on. I know for me, in my case, what would happen was I have such an addictive mind, such an intense mind, that I could not stop searching for answers. And I literally mean that. So whether it be computer science, programming, or for manifestation, finding information on the subconscious, or school, researching for projects, whatever the case may be, my addictive mind, what it would do is search and search and search and search and search, right? And then I would give up. But then instantly, I would accidentally stumble upon the answer time and time and time again. And sometimes in a mystical way, it would just pop into my mind, something I never knew before. So you can either stumble upon manifesting through that type of way, which is catching on, or just being in pain and figuring it out. But it's very difficult to get a clear answer as to, are we always manifesting? How do we manifest? How does the bridge of incidents work? How long should it take for a manifestation to come to pass? All these are amazing questions, and everyone has a different answer. That's the problem. The problem is that little do people test and more do they listen, right? So obviously you're listening to me, but my big thing is test this for yourself to prove this to yourself, right? So instead of going down rabbit holes of people telling you what they want to believe or the stories that they make up in their mind, which is, it's human nature. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but we can test this stuff. This stuff isn't airy-fairy mystical stuff. This is stuff that you can test and implement and keep track of and prove to yourself beyond the shadow of a doubt. And so that's why I'm coming up with this topic now. That's why this topic is so important, so that you can take this. I'm handing you how this works, and you can now keep your eye open and say, that is true. Like, you can prove this correct. You can do tests, segmented tests to prove it true. So just directly into it now, talking about impulses. When we manifest, which is what I was talking about, I digressed, but when we manifest, we imagine the end, right? Which means we imagine after we have already received the thing that we want. Whatever the case may be, being that all things are possible, we can select what we want. We think about it, we contemplate. Ask yourself, what do you want? What do I want? So ask yourself that question, what do I want? And then when you come up with an answer, ask yourself, is that really what I want? Or is that just something in the middle some means for me to get what I want, right? This is a problem I've seen a lot as well, is that individuals are choosing something, but it's not actually what they want. They're choosing something which they think will lead them to what they want. But say that there's nothing between you and the end. Say there's nothing between you and really what you want. And don't worry about what anyone else wants for you. You think about just what you want. That's important to note too. And so once we select that thing, once we choose that thing, we then ask ourselves, if we already had it, what would be happening? If I was already the person who had that thing, if I am already the person who has those character traits, whatever the case may be, whoever I want to be, whatever I want to experience, wherever I want to go, and I mean anything, we select a scene which would exist after we already have that thing, and we imagine it in first person point of view, and then what happens there. So I'm going to make a video on this soon about selecting states in eternity, but essentially what happens is we plant a seed, so to speak, something that we cannot quantify. It will never be able to be quantified. You can only find the patterns of manifesting in this world, never the source. But we plant a seed, so to speak. We select a piece of eternity which exists now, right? Because everything exists now in eternity in the mind of God. It's just that the human mind cannot fathom all things at once with the infinite awareness of God. We have a singular awareness. And so when we go into eternity in our imagination, which is the God of Scripture, we select what we want in our imagination. We imagine after the end. Once we do that, we plant a seed, so to speak. We select that piece of eternity, and now we must experience that piece of eternity. But how do we do that? The world that we live in is generally governed, 99% of the time, manifestations will come forth in a very natural way, which means that the laws of nature will be used to give us our manifestation. So we select a piece of eternity. That's the end. That's after the end. That's in our imagination. It says in Scripture that God has put eternity in our mind. And the mind is what's considered, that's the imagination, eternity. And the other word for eternity is a lad or a young man. And that's Jesus Christ of Scripture, the singular version of awareness. And so that is, we have awareness, we have infinite power, we have eternity in our mind. So we select with our imagination, we go into it, we select the end, we select that piece of eternity, but now it must unfold in space-time. So when we select it from eternity, it's already in its complete form. That's what we're doing with our imagination. We're peering into eternity and selecting a state, a spiritual state, and then it will become refracted out upon this space-time. But in order for it to get there, being that we can only experience things within a singular awareness, that end result must manifest in a natural way. 99% of the time, it'll probably more than that. It will come in a way which is according to the laws of the universe. And so that means the story has to play out. That means that now people have to do certain things. You have to do certain things in order to get you to your end. In order for that person to become the person that you want them to be, they have to go along a trail now, a path that will convert them into that person that you want them to be. And the same thing goes for you. The same thing goes for the money that you want, the job that you want, the lover that you want, the health that you want. The story must unfold. You're going into eternity, selecting this piece of eternity, and it's fulfilled, and it's already done. And it's like having a book, right? You're selecting a book in eternity, which is the end of the play. But we can't experience that play at the end just like that. We have the book. It must now unfold. The book must be played out in space-time, if that makes sense. These are concepts that are, the verbiage used to discuss these concepts are, we're talking about stuff in eternity, which does not have objective qualities. And so we're using objective language to describe objects, to describe eternity. So sometimes it's a little difficult to explain it properly. But the idea is that we select the end, and now the play must fulfill to get us to that end, because we're perceiving it within space-time. So for people to become that, for you to become that, the building block, summing it all together now, is the impulse. So that means that when I imagine something, you will have an impulse to fulfill that desire for me, but you believe that impulse is your impulse. So in other words, when I imagine something, I go into eternity, I select that state. That goes into my subconscious mind if I can imagine it real in first person point of view after the end. From that point, I stop imagining after I've done it properly. And now the world will begin to change. I must now encounter the thing that I have imagined. And the building block from which I will receive that is an impulse. So if I imagine someone to give me money, say it's anyone to give me money, or that free coffee, or an object, I imagine having it in my hands and then I drop it. Now, other people and myself, I must enter this play and reach the end. But I don't know that I'm doing it. You don't know that you're doing it. If I want you to do something, you don't necessarily know that that's why you're taking the steps that you're taking now. But nevertheless, you will get impulses, thoughts that will direct you to any specific place. And you will eventually take impulse after impulse after impulse. You will not know that these are even connected. But in the end, they will bring you to where you wanted. When I wanted to quit vaping, which I did successfully, it took a long time. Why? I had built such a habit here in this place that it was difficult for me to undergo any change. I had built the habits so strong that anything new was drowned out by the habit of old. But when I went to Montreal, it was very interesting. I eventually, going there, all my juice spilled. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. And it seemed like I would go time and time and time again without it. By the time I got back from Montreal, I made up my mind that I was going to quit. But not only that, then all these weird incidents started happening. My mother messaged me. She scared the crap out of me, telling me all these people were dying, which is true. God rest them. But in retrospect, I realized that it had nothing to do with the vape that I was vaping. But then I got a notice on my door about no smoking. And so all these people were given these impulses to take these actions. My vape juice spilled all over the place. Then I had the desire to quit. Then my mother messages me. Then someone puts a notice on my door. All these things happen one after the other, these unconnected events, but people had the impulses to do all of these things. And in the end, it led me to quit smoking, which is what I had imagined. And so all these different impulses, this is how manifesting works. One impulse after the next, after the next, after the next. Everyone thinking it's their own impulse. But all the subconsciouses, I guess you can say as a concession to the mind, are connected one to another. So when I imagine something, everyone gets the message. And so God in infinite intelligence directs each person through impulses of their own mind to take actions in order to fulfill my desires, to fulfill your desires, to fulfill everyone's desires. And it happens in a perfect, miraculous way. Sometimes it happens more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things are happening all at the same time. But it's that building block of impulse. And think of it this way too. The more someone has to change, it could be instant, right? Meaning it could be that someone gets one impulse and then changes. But for big changes, sometimes with more complex pieces, more chess pieces on the board having to move, it could take more impulses. It could take more people to interact together. It could take day after day after day after day of pieces moving all around the world in order for you to get the exact thing that you want. Or it could be instant. It could be one event. We are not the ones who are responsible for that. We're only responsible for imagining properly the exact thing that we want. And then we have to just simply know that we've done it and expect it to come. And so this is the building block of manifesting that is so important to understand, that people have to become and do the things that they want to do. And it's going to be in their own thoughts, their own minds. Test this, put this to the test. Start to observe when you imagine something, when you try to manifest something, watch how everything works in unison. People, you'll get the call or you'll bump into someone who you've imagined. And then you ask them, why did you come here? And they'll tell you some thought that has nothing to do with what you've imagined that brought them to that end, but they were given an impulse and it was perfect. Everything worked in perfect order like an orchestra meeting to its perfect end. So anyway, hope you like this. Hope this was helpful. If you did, please definitely hit that like button. It does something to the algorithm. I already said it. Subscribe for more laser-focused, systematic methodology and manifesting in a predictable way. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.